Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And I'm Jeff.
And it is Monday in the Rib.
And a little more enthusiasm, Jeff. I mean, you sound like you're dying.
Jeff, well, he was trying to,
It's a gloomy Monday.
remember his name. Wait a minute. Leave him alone. He was trying to remember his name. So,
Well, today's a big day in Fall River. Guess what came out today?
Another scandal.
Nomination papers came out today.
yeah.
And
Oh, yes.
was the first one. It looks like in elections, asking for support from the people because he wants to run again to represent the people of Fall River. Why? So he can vote for everything the mayor wants? He doesn't vote for what the people want. This is why we have a problem with our electorate all the way around. They vote for people they think are good people. He did me this favor. He did me that favor. He's out there playing baseball with the kids. He's out there playing baseball with the girls. He's out there doing this. You know what? I don't care about that. I want to know what you're doing for me. What are you doing for the people? The taxpayers. And I don't mean fixing a pothole in my street. Okay?
Yeah, you're right.
Well, let's hope we have a lot of new names, and a lot of some of the older names that ran before and have gotten motivated to run again because they see that this city really needs needs to change. We have
it needs a wake up call.
Serious problems. Yeah.
I was reading a post.
Big day. I guess the big news is the child trafficking arrest. I guess that police officer was arraigned.
Officer Mitchell Walsh.
And what was his bail set at?
$5,000 surety.
You didn't tell you're in Massachusetts because lousy $5,000 bail for child trafficking.
Yep.
Cocaine.
Yep. Vodka.
And alcohol. I think it was, you said what, vodka?
Vodka, yes.
Specific alcohol for an underage, oh God, I'll tell you.
And he offered to pay her $200.
They're lucky I'm not the judge. It'd be like it would have been $5 million for child trafficking. I mean, that's arguably one of the most reprehensible crimes that could ever be committed. And
even more so for a police officer.
But as we always say, he's entitled to due process, and he is innocent until proven guilty, but it seems as though since he was arrested actually in the act of that solicitation, doesn't look good. But
the other thing is the department was already on filing for disciplinary actions with the Civil Service Commission. So obviously they wanted to do something.
And Michelle Diaz, you're right. No, I wholeheartedly agree. Michelle is the only one who consistently has the taxpayer in mind. They all make rumblings now, and it'll be an election year, and they all have this faux concern about the taxpayers. But it's funny. I looked up the U.S. Census Bureau statistics again, and according to the U.S. Census Bureau, the average median income in the city of Fall River is still $31,990 something. It's right, 30,000. About 10 years ago, it was about 28. So, and that's a median, and it's actually lower than that, I think, because we've had a disproportionate amount of people get rich in this city. We have these people getting these jobs that pay big money, and that when you do a median, it's not reflective of the fact that the gap between the rich and the poor in Fall River has widened immeasurably. that's a major problem here.
Thank you, Paul Coogan.
Rich are getting richer,
Thank you.
and poor are getting poorer. So
Thank you, Paul Coogan.
yeah, thanks to Paul Coogan. Listen, one of his, I mean, it's nice that he finally acknowledged Nantucket rents, and thanks, Paul. You're the guy who brought him here. We really appreciate you. Really appreciate you saying that. We have Nantucket rents. Well, we got Nantucket rents, but we got Appalachia incomes, and that's the problem. You can't, and you can't figure out as a human, let alone a mayor, that this is problematic in a city where the average median income, the per capita median income is only 31,000 when state average is around 60, and the national average is 66,000, less than half. But it's okay for us to make this like Newton. So what's going to happen to people who live here? They're going to get decimated, which they are being decimated. So makes no sense.
No.
Yeah,
because either they're going to sell. No, I was going to say they're going to sell their house or they're going to move someplace where it's more cheaper, because you can't really find other places here in Massachusetts.
Yeah, the travesty is that a lot of the people who are affected have really, contributed to this city. We have a lot of, tomorrow we're talking about an increase, a big, massive increase. The COLA, which is going to go like, it's like $5. It's less than, it's chump change. So we get, they think it's a COLA on the entire salary, but it's not. So the base, it's really meaningless. But we the last time we went up for the COLA, we had 200 at least, 280, I believe about 285 living below 18,000. We had about 235 living below $12,000 a year. These are people, some of them have worked for this city for 30 or 40 years. And they made the inexcusable mistake of living a long life. The retirement system is broken. It's got to be fixed. You can't keep up with it. People on Social Security do get pay increases, but it's on their entire pension. Public employees only get it on a base, and Fall River is one of the last two remaining places in Massachusetts that have a $12,000 COLA base, which is chump change. I mean, New Bedford's got 14. That's chump change too.
Yeah, but it's something.
Rather than getting a raise that amounts to 300, and which is what we get now, $360 a year. So figure that out, guys. Do the massive math. There's 365 days in a year. Right now, since we've had a COLA base, people have been getting $360 a year. Not a week, not a month, not every 2 months, a year. That's less than $1 a day. $1 a day. Now they're going to go up to if we get this COLA base, they're going to go up to a massive $420 a year. A year. That's what you're going to wipe that thing out with your first 2 water bills. Think about these people that are 80, 85, 90 years old, work their whole life serving the city of Fall River, and are living on this kind of chump change. It's inexcusable. And I mean, theoretically, we can't blame the city council, except if they don't approve this raise. Maybe more. But you gotta blame the council in a way, because why aren't they talking to our state reps about a massive reform? They don't do a damn thing. I filed a bill, I don't know how long ago, maybe 5 years ago already, to allow to let the state give some relief for prescription drug costs to retirees who were older and have been retired for 10, 15, 20 years. I testified in Boston. Actually, Jim Machado, who is now on a retirement board with me, I have a picture of us on my phone, still saved it to remind me. We were sitting in Boston testifying with Alan Sylvia because he filed the bill.
Another useless human being.
And died again and died again. While they're giving billions to illegal immigrants, our state representatives don't give priority to homeless veterans and don't even support a bill. Well, I mean, he filed it, but the thing went nowhere.
But they make sure they get their pay raises. They make sure they get their benefits.
And let's see what happens with the new bills. There are a couple of new bills in Boston too. There's an enhancement for the COLA, another massive, like $100 a year or something, for people who've been retired 20 years. You see, that's the problem. When most people retire, they get a decent pension. But if you're only going to get $360 a year, it's not going to take you much long to outlive your pension, because reality is, just think about the rents in Fall River. 10 years ago, the rents were like around $700, $750 in the city of Fall River. That's only 10 years ago. Imagine what they were 20 years ago. And now imagine having a pension. Now they've gone up to $1,500, $2,000. So that's more than doubled, 50% more. And just that increase alone, it would take you like 10 years of COLAs just to pay your increase in rent. So, I mean, this is...
If you weren't living in a tent first.
It's a travesty. And tomorrow's the big day for the police chief, I guess. Her that comes up.
Yep.
Tomorrow night's meeting. And there are a lot of people that are a little, I guess they're not, it's got nothing with her performance or her, but I think that Paul Coogan again shows how irrelevant spending money is to him. She's getting a job, and her first day in the job, she's going to have like $22,000, almost $23,000 pay raise. Who gets a pay raise when you first start a job? I don't know.
Well, I want to start by saying that because I know that the council are going to vote for that tomorrow, but they haven't even voted to even have her as the new chief. So why vote for giving her $22,000 while she hasn't done anything major? She hasn't been to any of the neighborhood meetings all the time. She can't be up front when there's problems. But we'll give her a pay raise. Let's like give Ken Pacheco $15,000 for doing his so-called job by fixing bad roof in the schools. Let's not forget about that. But yet the school department votes for him.
Well, look, a pay raise is a pay raise, collective bargaining. People are going to take what they can get, obviously. But, this is the problem with Paul Coogan. He has no understanding of the reality. You can't pay people that work for the city Nantucket salaries when they're making Appalachia, other people are making Appalachia wages. So and you wonder why we run out of money. It's not the only one. He gave a $40,000 pay raise to a mechanic a few years ago. Did everybody forget that one? He gives raises like, it's not his money. Nobody cares. It's like it's like, let's hope the council makes some reference, and not that they're not worth it. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. And, you know, like I said, there's not enough money to pay police officers. But the fact is, I was talking to someone the other day. Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. We knew. But I reminded many years ago, I was bargaining, and I think we were getting ready to go to the JLMC, and we were talking about wages and ability to pay. That's the first thing you have to prove. Fall River doesn't have the ability to pay. They used to tell you want to make Boston money, go work in Boston. You want to make, you know, but when I was preparing for that, I had all kinds of stats, like I always do. And at the time, which was many, many years ago, the trash collectors, the Department of Public Works in San Francisco, California, which I know CJ knows well.
Yeah.
They were the trash collectors, the DPW employees in San Francisco were making more than any public employee in Fall River. They were making more than the mayor, any department head, or anything. Why? Because even in those days, a house in San Francisco was $1 million.
That's right.
Oh yeah.
House.
It's even more.
You need, you know, and people had incomes. I looked up the incomes just because, you know, I like to do that now. Fall River's income is basically stagnated. Last time I looked, but Newton. Newton. Now our per capita, remember our per capita income is 31, I think 993. I'm going to roll up a few Newton numbers here, and Paul thinks, you know, they can afford our rent. So, okay, but the per capita income in Newton is $95,106, nearly $100,000 a year. That is 3 times what we make in Fall River. The median household income is $184,489 compared to $53,000. I mean, but here's the big one. Fall River has a 20.9 poverty rate, which is nearly 21%, just to be 21, 0.1% less than 21%, which means 1 out of 5 people is living below the poverty level in the city of Fall River. And does Paul give a shit? Does our council give a shit when they set the water rates? Newton's poverty rate is 4%. And those are probably people that are visiting from Fall River. So this is what you got. But, you know, you can't compare this. And when they start talking about, this is why when we talk about these people spending money, nobody's saying that a person isn't worth X amount of dollars, except maybe Paul. You could probably make that statement that he's not worth his salary with the job he's doing. But the reality is, it's apples and oranges. You cannot compare what the, you know, this is you know, as much as the socialists and the progressive Democrats would like this to be a socialist country, we still have a capitalistic economy, which means you can only charge supposedly what the market would bear. But Paul Coogan charges the taxpayers whatever he wants and just throws money at all his friends. It's an election year. Money is just flying around like, I don't know, you know, it's crazy. You look at these things, look at the stats. I mean, I think we've got 75% of the people in Fall River have a high school diploma. Newton's educational level. High school graduates, 97.3%.
Wow. That tells you something.
Yeah. And bachelor's degrees are higher, 80.7%. Well, that's the reason, that's Paul's like been walking around at Durfee so long, he forgot about the real world. Newton is a bedroom community for Boston. Most of those people are college educated people with very, very good jobs, some of them in academia, who commute from their bedroom city of Newton into Boston. And that's why you have nearly 8 out of every 10 people and almost 100%, 97.3% with bachelor's degrees. And the other thing is, and I think Fall River will be lower in the next set of things, family living arrangements. Nearly 80% of the property in Newton is owner occupied. Fall River's latest is 36%. And I think it's going to go a lot lower with all this market rate housing, because none of those rich people that are building a market live in Fall River. So again, Paul doesn't care about the people of Fall River, because most of the people, there you go, Jeff. Nice.
There you go. 82 market rate apartments.
Yep.
$20 million, as we've been talking about that before.
Does on the water rates. Let's see what they do about, making some attempt at not spending money and doing something for the taxpayers, because I think that they're kind of in a catch-22. If they continue what they're doing, I think you'll see a lot of people ready to throw them out of office. All of them except for Michelle, as I said. And substantial education for the most part. And this is one of the problems. We always talk about Fall River. Fall River is not going to be saved by calling it a gateway city, by telling you got market rate housing and a MBTA train. Jobs, income, elevate cities. When people were working in the mills, we had every store on the Flint, on Pleasant Street was full. People had money to pay. Job training, apprenticeship programs. Our focus in our economy should be rebuilding the people of this city. And Trump is doing that on a national level, trying to bring
jobs back here in the U.S.
back. And they had amazing job numbers this quarter. They had incredible job numbers. They're beginning to bring things back to the country, and people are all batshit over their 401ks, but that'll rebound because the market always does. But what he's trying to do with these things is bring jobs back to the United States. Everybody can't have a college degree. Maybe in Newton you can, but the fact is that cities like Fall River, like Pittsburgh, like all the blue-collar communities in this country, they're all in trouble because there's no jobs for people who just got a high school diploma and who don't have skill. Not everybody can be a plumber. Not everybody can be an electrician. Somebody's got to have regular jobs, and jobs like that, in manufacturing of some type, are what floats a city like this is boat. And keep small business in business. And Fall River is, our economy of a city like this is not run on big business. It's small business. And we have more than 10,000 less businesses than Newton does, because Why? Because people in Newton have money. And when you have money, businesses stay in business.
Goes
Something
up.
we don't have.
A
Nope.
real big,
We don't.
a real big, and tariffs are not bad because one of my favorite people, you all know this, Milton Friedman, explained. A lot of people don't realize that before we had income taxes in Fall River and in the United States had no taxes. They survived on tariffs. So people, you got the Democrats running around their hair on fire yelling, you're going to pay more. Yeah, you're going to pay more for your cheap Chinese goods, your cheap Vietnamese goods. What he's trying to do is bring manufacturing back to the United States so you can afford to buy American products and keep America afloat.
Hey, you know what's funny? Because I wasn't changing the subject, but this past weekend, a bunch of protesters went to Dartmouth, went to Boston, Providence, all over the country, protesting against the Trump administration and Elon. And look, hey, I don't toot your horns, but you have every right to go and protest. But I just find it so funny that they're so butthurt that he's thinking that he's just, he's hurting people's, pocket. This has been an issue for the past 4 years under Biden's administration, which he failed to do so. He said he was going to bring in Build Back America, which it didn't do anything. So it's not Trump's fault that eggs went up. It's not Trump's fault that the economy went down because of COVID and the lockdowns and all that. People didn't want to go back to work. People
Still don't want to go back to work.
They don't, because they're lazy. They're always making excuses. Which, you know what? That's your prerogative. But people want to make a living. We're already struggling enough to try to make ends meet, trying to make a living. All I want to do is work and make a living and save up. I'm not looking out to become a millionaire. I don't want to buy a car. I don't want to buy, those avocados, whatever. It's like, come on, people.
Yeah, but not only that. Look, people got short-term memories. In his first term, you had a great economy. We will have another good economy. We've had great job numbers, but you got to do something to help the United States. This is the way we got here. 30 years of basically democratic rule and an economy giving away everything that helped the average American, like NAFTA. Send all your jobs to Mexico and let the auto industry tank. Then take the taxpayer money and bail the auto industry out until it fails again. You gotta feel a little pain, just like in Fall River. If we get a decent mayor that does a forensic audit and finds out that we're broke because Coogan's buying everybody out for a vote, we're going to have to bite the bullet. But after we bite the bullet, if we get jobs back, which we will, and remember, people forget eggs are coming down, by the way. They're still high, but they're coming down. Trump's already begun to bring some eggs down. They will come down. But let's not forget like you said, how we got here. 4 years of the Democrats and Biden doing, well, it's not Biden. Now everybody's coming out now. Everybody's coming out into the daylight. They're all writing books. Biden was a shell. He didn't know where he was half the time. He had to take a nap every hour and a half. He was a basket case. And that's his own Ron Klain, his chief of staff, now wrote a tell-all book saying that he was so pathetic that they had, that in the middle of the 25 minutes into the debate prep, he had to say, I'm tired. I'm going to go take a nap. He had no idea where he was. And I mean, this is what ran the country. And they're giving money to everybody. It was the Democrats that sent jobs to Canada. Charges 300% tariff on butter. Korea won't allow us to sell rice. our farmers to sell rice because of tariffs. You can't buy beef. We can't sell American beef in Australia. This is fair. And we subsidize all those countries. We give them all money. And they screw our businesses.
And
Trump,
that's where our mistake has been.
They stick it right to us. They
That's
take
right. And
our
we
money.
let them. And we let them. And that's the problem. We let
Exactly.
We talk about the Democrats in the past 4 years. Well, guess what? We have our own big Democrat here in Fall River. His name's Paul Coogan. And he spent $70 million with nothing to show for it.
Nothing to give back to people.
Nothing to show for it. Nothing to show for it. And what was the statement that came out of the city council's comment about that? We're going to be talking about that $70 million for the rest of our lives.
Well, no kidding, because they're the ones who were stupid enough to do it.
How you spent it, people wouldn't be complaining about it. Furthermore, you're over there charging $700 a quarter for water and sewer. How is people supposed to afford that?
They can't.
That's right.
Well,
they can't, because if that, they're going to have to raise up the rents. And when they do that,
talk about the $70 million for the rest of life. But I have to differ with one thing about that, CJ. You said we'll never see anything, but you know what we're going to have? Thanks to our illustrious Mayor Paul Coogan, who cares so much about the people of Fall River and didn't give us a penny of that opera money. We are going to have the nicest benches and the nicest lights in the MBTA corridor of anybody in the state. Everybody else in the state, including Newton, could take the lights that the state was going to pay for. Take the benches that the state were going to pay for. Only Fall River could get a giant 55-gallon drum of lipstick and put that on the peg.
That's right.
Down there.
Yep.
Only Paul Coogan could blow $7 million on benches and lights.
$700 million is not going to show for it. You're right.
It's tough.
Oh, we have absolutely nothing except nice benches. And you know something? They won't even let Fall River people sit on those benches. Remember what Paul said. If you don't own a condo and you can't pay that rent, you're supposed to leave. You can't sit on those benches. You can't go look at those lights. They'll probably you'll probably need an ID card. It'll be like Mother Russia. You have to show your ID before you can sit on those benches.
Remember the Braga Bridge lights that we don't have anymore? We had them for what, less than a year?
Yeah.
We don't have them again.
And how much did they cost?
Millions.
No,
By Caraviola. So
I mean, look, I'm laughing because it's to stop from crying. It's so bad. It is so bad.
Well, people were complaining that what's the purpose of doing that? It's like, come on, they don't care. They don't listen to us.
That was all done. So when Paul starts giving away the land along the Duval corridor, all those investors and businesses have beautiful benches for people to sit on and beautiful lights to light up the way. Because you and I both know they're not going to sell that land for fair market rate. Although Mike Roderick said, we are going to make sure we get fair market rate on that land. I believe that,
Yeah. Well, if that's the case, there's no place. There are no UFOs. I don't know. I'm sorry. These people are crazy. We got fair market that they're paying pennies on not a dollar, pennies on the hundreds of dollars, on the thousands of dollars. These people have got deals. They keep getting tax breaks. And like I said, tonight, tomorrow night, let's see what this council does. This city is on the verge. When you're looking at this kind of money, and it's like there's no relief. That's the problem. He just doesn't care. He just keeps doing it. For him to have the lack of political wherewithal
and the lack of honesty. Remember,
Exactly.
the EMS got all new ranks,
yeah,
a whole new level of management. Okay, they got what 18% pay raises
yeah,
with the guarantee, with the promise that the EMS system would be rolled over into a fire-based EMS system. And instead, he bucked up the salaries of the management team, and it's not going to happen now. Why, I still don't know, but
like blowing cocaine. Yeah, well, listen, we've had mayors that spent some money, but nothing to the extent.
But this is the worst.
This was giveaway money. I mean, this was bonus money that cities and towns got. And look, the mayor of New Bedford used it for affordable housing. We had people all over the country putting the money back in to help the people of their community. And Paul Coogan, like I said, and now to have the lack of political wherewithal to get a chief and say, look, your first day on a job, you're already going to get a $23,000 pay raise. What job do you get where you walk in there and you make more than any other employee that did that job before you ever did? And
that's like a man.
They're going to say, well, there's a reason because of the way the things go. She would have been making less than a deputy chief. Well, what does that say? It means you gave too much money to pay. See, that's kind of a vicious cycle in bargaining. If you give the subordinates more money than the leader, then that justifies you to keep increasing the leader's pay because you gave everybody else money. You got to bargain in that atmosphere and environment of what is the effect on the whole forest, not the tree. Every time you give a pay raise to your people, it's like a mill. The analogy I used to use is if you ran a mill and all the workers wanted a pay raise, and you said, well, if I got 5,000 people working for me and I give them $5 a week, okay, $5 a week, do the number. What is that going to cost, right? So is it cheaper for me to give, even if I gave them $1, if I gave them $1 a week more, okay, that's $5,000 a week I've got to pay out to give them a pay raise, right? $5,000 a week. Is it cheaper for me to pay a supervisor $500 a week to kick them in the butt to work harder? Yeah, it's basic economics. And if you start giving them pay raises and they make more than the supervisor is going to go, screw you, I'm out of here. And it's a vicious cycle. But you know why? It only happens in government. Because in government, there's no accountability. The taxpayer pays the bill. Paul Coogan is going to give out that pay raise without a second thought because he's not paying for it. We are. And not that it's like I said, it's got nothing to do with deserve. Remember that movie, The Unforgiven? Anybody see that? You guys see that movie?
Yeah.
It's been a while, but yes.
Remember when he was going to shoot and he passed away now, rest his soul. Gene Hackman played the sheriff. When he was going to shoot him for killing his friend, and he went, I don't deserve this. This is what Clint said to him. We got to say to Paul Coogan, deserves got nothing to do with it. And that's the problem in the collective bargaining. You can only give money in collective bargaining that you can afford to give. In the real world, that's the way it works. Jeff, I'd love to give you a $10,000 pay raise on your salary for being on a show.
Oh, thank you.
Which is zero.
I didn't do much, but thank you. I deserve it.
But we can't afford it. You know, this
Oh,
is
then
the
I'll go
reality.
someplace
In
else.
government, you get pay raises like this. In government, you pay $500 for a toilet seat that you can get for $15 at Walmart. So,
Yeah.
this is the problem with government. And when you got a mayor like him, arguably the worst mayor fiduciarily and fiscally in the history of the city, I mean, what more can we say? I mean, it's
Well,
crazy.
if
It's like
that
a
doesn't
crazy
tick you,
house.
well, if that doesn't tick you off tomorrow when it comes, because there's going to be a school and the city council, and then next week, the water, the debate, the increase, whether or not they're going to vote yes or no on it next week, it's going to be important too. Because if they vote yes next week, all you people are going to complain on social media. This is your chance to actually go there and have your say. Because the last time there was only a couple people, but you know what?
And not only that,
This is the time.
but if you can't open your mouth and you allow them to increase your water rate and you vote them back in, you get what you deserve.
Exactly.
You get what you deserve.
Exactly. But
That's the
Yeah, well,
problem
you're
with
right,
this city. They all think with their ass.
well, the woman
Because they're
that spoke,
kissing it all.
well, the woman that was on WSAR earlier today, she said that she talked to a few people that are going to register to vote for the first time. So that tells you something. But don't vote for people because, oh, I like this guy, as you said, CJ, all the time, because he's going to do my pothole or does my chow mein or whatever.
Right.
Don't vote for them because they're your friends. Vote for them because they want to do something for your buck, for your living situation.
No,
Come on.
You're right. Look, it's mind-boggling how people with politicians, they vote for them because they like their haircut, or they wear a nice suit, or they put up. Look, you don't hire your plumber because you like the way he combs his hair. Every other job in the world you get hired because you can do it. Because you know something, mechanics who can't fix cars don't stay in business long. Plumbers who can't fix your plumbing don't stay in business long. People who overpay all their employees in private industry go out of business. But politicians can be incompetent and they get elected for every reason except the fact that they can do the freaking job. Nobody ever elected it. Look at some of the bozos we got in Congress. We got a guy there that said that Guam was going to sink if they put too many trucks on one end of the island. Okay? That was a fact. That's a statement they actually made. We've got people in Congress that is so dumb they couldn't get a job doing French fries in McDonald's, and they're all millionaires. Mazie Hirono from Hawaii. She's one of the dumbest people in Congress. Look
it's
at
really
these.
sad.
Some of them are but they're all millionaires, and they all spend our money like drunken sailors. Ronald Reagan, one of my favorite quotes from Ronald Reagan: "Politicians spend money like a drunken sailor. The only difference between a drunken sailor and a politician is the drunken sailor uses his own money."
True.
Well, yeah, it's true. And there's times I wish that the parties can actually work together and stop being so damn bitter because they don't like what Trump is doing because he wants to work for the American people. But they're so bitter. They're so aggravated. Well, you know what? This is why you lost. And if they keep on doing it, they're going to keep on losing more parties because they'd rather vote for more Republicans or independents.
Yeah, they can have all the paid demonstrations because Soros and these people are backing these demonstrations, and they can have all the biased media coverage to try to pretend this is an issue. But let's get back to the bottom line. Even CNN and MSNBC have said that the Democratic Party is at about a 21 to 29% acceptance rating by their own people in their own party. People know they're full of crap. That the majority of people like what Trump's doing. He's trying to fix America. He's saying, listen, I want jobs to come back to America. I want manufacturing to come back to America. I want to stop giving away jobs like the Democrats did with I want to bring, I want to bring these companies back to America, and he has. A lot of automakers now, I forgot which company was going to build a plant in Mexico. They're building it in the United States now. I saw the owner, the CEO of Ford Motor Company last night doing an interview saying, I mean, this is bringing valuable jobs back. It's going to make people buy American. It's like, BMWs, German cars, Japanese cars. There's a lot of them on the road in this country, but you try to sell an American car in Japan, you can't. There's virtually no American cars in Germany. The tariffs are so high. You want to be competitive? That's what Donald Trump's saying. You want to tariff our stuff, we tariff yours. And the reality is tariffs are not bad. If Milton Friedman said it, you could take it to the bank. Because Milton Friedman also, one of my favorite quotes is, if you give the government the Sahara Desert, they'll run out of sand in 5 years. So we all know what politicians are. Paul Coogan is a consummate politician. He's like Adam Schiff and the rest of these bozos are my favorite guy from Massachusetts, Markey, the guy who ran on term limits 150 years ago. The bottom line is all the talk we're doing here is saying one thing. We got to get people to run. We got to register people to vote. And we got to get them to the polls, because we all know what the problem is. But the only way to fix it is to have people get pissed off and vote.
They did. You're right.
But that's the problem in Fall River. People don't vote. And that's why when I saw the Trump election, a little bit of my heart was revived.
Yeah.
Thinking that it's a possibility.
Yeah,
Trump,
you're right.
Pocketbook, CJ, and now their pocketbook, when they get their water bills, or their landlord has to raise their rent to afford a water bill and taxes and all the TIFs. This may be, everything has its time. And I think this is another 1995 kind of time in Fall River. Those people, like you said, you got a little bit of inspiration. You got inspired a little bit when you saw the turnout. So did I. And we got to keep these people fired up. Trump appealed to them. He went to these people and said, I'm working for you. And most of the people.
Yeah.
And now it's up to the people of Fall River to say, I'm not happy with this government. This is out of control. Out of control.
Let me tell you something. When you look at this government in Fall River, and I'm not just talking about an idiot named Paul Coogan. I'm talking about the government in general. Okay? Everyone gets paid way too much for way too little.
Very true.
Okay?
Very true.
And they all complain that they don't get enough. Meanwhile, you have people that are doing more work than anybody else, and they're getting paid less money than everybody else. And you don't hear them complaining. And their unions don't even represent them. Their unions laugh.
They're afraid to complain because Coogan will get them. Coogan will can them. Listen, we still got people in this city working as clerks that are making $30-some thousand. And Coogan gives out a $40,000 pay raise to somebody, and they're making $35,000 for the year. So are they pissed off? Yeah, but they're afraid to talk because they're going to lose their job. And
right.
And this is the problem. You've got a bunch of he's got a absolute power, and the old adage, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And we're corrupted. Our council doesn't care, apparently. They can talk a lot. They do a lot of talking. But
and they all repeat everything that everyone else has said.
Like you said, Jeff, let's see at the next meeting what they do on the water rates. And I'll tell you what, I think I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm a pragmatist, but I'm cautiously optimistic that I think this next November you might see them going to the polls with pitchforks and torches.
Could only hope.
Well, this is your chance, people. Don't be afraid. Don't be scared from the so-called powerful people here in the city.
And remember, they don't know what you voted unless you tell them. Your ballot is secret. So unless you tell them, they don't know who was voted.
Yeah.
So be aware of that.
But there's
and
no corruption.
when you take the attitude that my vote doesn't count, so I'm not going to vote, you're the problem. You're the problem.
Or I don't want to vote for this guy, but who can I choose? People, come on. It's not, stop being such ignorance. It's not, what do you want Paul to run again for another 2 more years, or you want to actually vote for someone who actually benefit and actually go into financial getting rid of things that we don't need? That's better leadership, in my opinion.
Well,
that's your choice, people. I don't want to hear it. But this is going to be a long election season.
Yes, it is. And when we've already got one candidate out of the gate.
That's right.
By the way, I like Andrew as a person. As a politician, I don't like him. He has done nothing to help the people of Fall River. Every time he's voted for a water increase, he has basically said, to the people of Fall River. Every time he's voted for a contract that gave a pay raise, to the people of Fall River. Every time he's voted for increased property taxes, to the people of Fall River. Every time he's voted for a TIF, to the people of Fall River. That's how you decide whether or not somebody is deserving of your vote. That is how. Not because they showed up at every neighborhood meeting. Not because they're playing baseball with the students in his school. It's what is he doing for you?
No, you're right.
I'll say this. I mean, you as a city.
But I'll say this, and I'm not defending it, but he's the only one when it comes to when neighborhood meetings used to be serious. He's the only one who actually shows up, and you don't see any. Between him and Michelle Dion, all the others don't care to show up.
No, they don't want to.
They only go to the meetings that day.
They don't want to deal with the questions, or worse yet, having to give answers and being held accountable.
Yeah.
They'll get over it.
I've said that.
I'm sorry, but if you showing up at a neighborhood meeting is the only criteria needed for you to get elected, we live in a piss poor community.
Well,
yeah,
you're right. And I'm looking up Teddy Roosevelt quotes here, and like I say, he talked about Rome being destroyed because the voters didn't vote, but he made this is a really good one that I remember. I knew he had made. A vote is like a rifle, and its usefulness depends on the character of the user. So unless people use that rifle and point it in the right direction, it's useless. And a vote is our rifle. It's the way we determine our government. And as Roosevelt said about the Roman Republic being destroyed when the voters stopped and allowed the politicians to run the government, we are the government. We say that a million times, but it says it in our Declaration of Independence. The Constitution clearly states that the government is of the people, by the people, for the people. Everything is about the people, but if the people don't participate, it becomes the government of the corrupt politician, by the corrupt politician, and for the corrupt politician. So if you're pissed off, vote. That's simple.
Can't be any easier than that. Well, I want to thank you all for watching today. This was a very interesting program with some very interesting comments. Already the election season has started. Get out there, vote, get out there and sign those nomination papers for people who have never run before. Get new people involved. And don't support people who are putting their name out there, riding the coattails of the mayor.
That's
and
right.
being in the neighborhoods. Because guess what? That is not going to cut it for the people of Fall River.
Well, I'm looking at the sign that Dave put up there. You see that little sign next to his name there? It's that I can't. It's about an audit. Support forensic audit. I like that sign, David. I like that sign. Support forensic audit.
Best thing in the world. Well, I want to thank you all for watching, and remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. We'll see you on Wednesday. Have a great night.
Have a good one.
All righty then.